Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Welcome to this video update of my channel and some of the things that I'm changing and doing and in regards to personal readings and all of that. So I want to start by saying that, first of all, welcome to my channel. I really appreciate your views and your comments are really meaningful to me. Thank you very much. Before I go into how I'm going to be doing my booking process moving forward, I just have to go back a little bit. In the last few months, I've been in like a restructuring kind of energy and looking at how it's going to work for me. Because as an intuitive person reading cards and using this as a form of divination to gain messages from the consciousness, collective consciousness. This is a very intense kind of thing to do. So for that reason, it's difficult for me to follow the parameters that are like the mainstream expectations of reading, like putting out forecasts for the month. That's just not my path, and I'm trying to kind of move away from that. I've always had a resistance to that anyway. So what is my path? My path is gaining this information and then teaching it. And this is like a rebirth for me. So we're in this energy of Aries right now. It's all about this really different kind of Aries energy. It's really powerful because it's like a sacred marriage between the self, the lower self, and the energy of the base chakras, the passion, and the higher self, the higher mind, and the consciousness, and the collective consciousness, and the marriage of those energies, and that information is a window into the self. It's like the curtain being pulled back, and being able to see the beauty of the self after long periods of not being able to see things about the self. So the really fascinating thing for me is that just when I started doing the Aries energy, because I read energy, it's not just like a tarot scope, I'll start the reading with the intention of reading the zodiac sign in the energy we're in right now. So the Aries reading was this message about being a channel and channeling this passionate kind of base chakra energy. And the Taurus reading was about this this marriage, sacred marriage between something lower, like this base chakra energy, and something higher. And so after those two readings, I kind of, went off into my own little world, as I do, as a Pisces, and I have Scorpio moon, so I'm really inquisitive and I'm a researcher. And when I get onto something, synchronistically, I'll be led to different things. And what I was led to was, and I know nothing about mythology. I know little bits and pieces, but my memory, I don't hold on to things very well. So I'm literally like, a channel where things come through, I say them, and then I will think about it after the reading, and then I'll get on tangents and get all distracted with what I've found, and then I'll connect the dots and realize what the actual story is in the reading. So it led me to Eros and Psyche university thesis that they wrote on Psyche and Eros, and it says The character of Psyche is a character of learning and transformation, in keeping with the translation of her name, which means spirit, soul, or butterfly. Many prominent authors write about myth as related to psychology, literally to the psyche, and the agreement is that myths hold truths that lie in the collective unconscious of man. So that really stood out to me. That the myths are in the collective unconscious of man. So then that made me think, okay, that's possibly why I'm tuning into that, and these stories come up in the reading. And then it says, and so whether or not they are acknowledged, they exist. And Campbell, Jung, and Henderson, but all three of them had that belief or view. These authors also agree that as generations pass, humankind is less and less connected to nature, even to its personal history, and therefore it's dehumanizing itself. This is ironic when one considers that Psyche becomes a god at the end of the myth, and therefore loses her humanity. So that's interesting, and I'll tell you why that's interesting, because if we look at the actual myth, I found this on 0.tripod.com. Don't ask me how I found it. And that's also interesting because I was looking at something else and it was saying 0%. So there's something about 0 point or 0%, which I'm not 100% clear on yet at all. So the Lover's card. So the reason why the Lover's card has kept coming up in so many readings lately is because it's the card of this myth, Eros and Psyche. Eros representing the primal energy, passion, masculine energy, physical energy, and also they say that this myth is also the story of Beauty and the Beast and Cinderella. It's fairy tales. So the tale is, it says that it has psychological value because it reveals the development of the initiate's relationship with his anima as a result of the initiatory process. Eros is a phallic god, the erotic impulse, who, and also known as Cupid, who stings with his arrow of love in the tail. Eros represents the reproductive passion, which is transformed through its relationship with Psyche. The union of Eros and Psyche engenders bliss. Eros bonded with Psyche represents bonding of soul and mind. Eros is cured from lust and cleaves to Psyche. The union of those two engenders bliss, and the bonding of those two, which is soul and mind, Eros is cured from lust and cleaves to Psyche. So it's talking about total freedom and movement of consciousness higher. And I feel that this is about a reflection also, because I'll keep going. Elements of this have come down in fairy tales such as Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast, the uses of enchantment. So there is a change, a transformation. Something happens. Eros moves from sexual objectification towards soulful love, which is the masculine aspect of ourselves, moving away from objectification, and not just sexual objectification, but lower lower consciousness. This part of ourselves that is more dense and more Psyche from projection of her masculine qualities towards empowerment. So the feminine aspect of ourselves becoming empowered. Emotionally, they act out the dynamic of an immature relationship in the meantime. So until there is this death of the ego and a transformation of consciousness, emotionally we stay in an immature dynamic in relationships. And it says this naturally leads towards active introspection on the mental level. So the repeated emotional relationships leads to more and more betrayals, disappointments, and this repeated cycle of destructive dynamics naturally leads towards active introspection on the mental level, which results in spiritual consciousness raising and a renewed sense of empathy and compassion. It says this myth resonates with the tarot, the lovers. The Crowley deck shows an exalted version of the sacred marriage. And we have this feminine energy, which is both light and dark, because this comes through with the Empress energy. Often in my readings, this Empress feminine mother energy can be destructive, but she can also be very powerfully creative. There's a duality with the Empress energy I've found in the readings. So if we view the young man as the immature ego, this card can represent a woman with a split between the physical and spiritual aspects of love. Sometimes his dynamic becomes acted out in life through a love triangle. The ego must bear responsibility for any action it takes in response to the conflicting figures. So the ego cannot detach itself from either of them in outer reality, since each belongs to its inner reality. If the ego stands its ground and endures the tension of conflicting desires, it can become free of the spell of unconscious projection in either direction. And it says we must come to terms with both instinctual draws to gain full stature. This is a step toward individuation. Otherwise remain enthralled to our feminine instinctual side, which conditions our emotions. We live out a frozen trance-like state of mystified love rather than mature, soulful love. The challenge is to connect our spiritual and emotional life through passionate involvement in all of life. Then we find ourselves in a new relationship with others and in harmony with ourselves, facing each individual conflict and suffering through it to its resolution or transcendence. So here's where I think of the Seven of Swords. When things come up and this Seven of Swords energy comes into my readings, it's like running away from the truth and essentially running away from the ability to create harmony within the self and not facing each individual conflict and moving through that suffering towards a resolution. So it says, by facing our fears and pains, becoming conscious of our conflicts, we can find peace. New realizations appear in their embryonic stage as conflicts which offer us choices in life. These decision points become either our life's path or roads not taken, crossroads. That's come up a lot. Eros, like fate, is symbolic of the fatal power of attraction which brings opposites together. He is the incarnating life principle which ushers in the irrational, passionate intensity which makes transformation possible. He turns up the heat on the psychic process. He is that spiritual or divine fire which can unite with instinct. So, intense things have to happen, basically, for transformation. Because that is the turning up of the heat, the base chakra energy, the passion center, the irrational impulses, passion, intensity that makes transformation possible, fire. In the tale, Psyche, the human soul, is still in the cave of illusion, and her sisters, which is collective consciousness on a kind of mainstream vibration frequency, I feel. Complete cave dwellers who behave like envious sisters in fairy tales everywhere. And Venus is a placer of difficulties in Psyche's way. So Venus is like what you're attracted to, and vanity and all of that kind of thing. And so to me, this is like in the twin flame story, the cave dwellers, the interferers in the story, the ones with the lower vibration around the two souls, because I feel that in the story it's on both sides. Sorry about that noise. And then we have Venus, who is the placer of difficulties in Psyche's way. So the difficulties in our own evolution, the obstacles, the vanity, the superficial kind of falling in love, fairy tale stuff. So if Eros is the principle of the desire for good, and the psyche is the human soul, and that is reflected in the twin flame story, both people in the twin flame story are both Psyche and Eros. That explains why sometimes I have felt like the twin flame story is the Lover's card and the Devil, because with these cave dwellers involved, and the lower vibrational energy around, and the things that get in our way, the obstacles, the superficial desires, and old programming from cave dwellers or envious people. It's either the twin flame story. The way that I understand it is that it can either go into this beautiful energy of co-creation, and the sky's the limit on transcendence and physically creating things also in the tangible sense, or can go to the other side of this codependent energy, addictions, toxicity. But I feel that is outside of the twin flame story. It's like the other people, the other players involved. So the human soul finally marries the principle of desire for good and becomes a goddess. The philosopher's soul, by pursuing divine desires, can become immortal. The myth of Psyche and Eros is a wake-up call to the soul. On archetypal levels, this awakening can only occur through the call of the beloved, represented in the story by Eros. So the actual myth is, it begins with the birth of a young girl, Psyche, whose beauty surpasses that of Aphrodite, represented of the collective consensus, stuck in old ways and refusing to grow. So Psyche, a beautiful soul who enters this plane of existence with already a higher consciousness than that of the representatives of the existing collective. And they are stuck in old ways and refusing to grow. She resents, so Aphrodite, the collective consensus, resents Psyche's beauty and vengeance enlists the help of her son or lover Eros to shoot one of his arrows at her so that she will be consumed with passion for a man who brings her endless agony. So I feel that this is talking about what we have been programmed. So the collective consensus, the programming, influencing those that came into the world with a higher consciousness to settle for something that is going to bring her endless agony. Not really clear on that part yet, but I feel that that's because Aphrodite represents collective consensus, then Eros, and Eros being the masculine side of ourselves, and the desire and the passion is the collective consensus that are stuck in the old ways, the programming. So it's the programming. So meanwhile, no one will marry Psyche, as her beauty is so great that it is perceived as too much, and loneliness ensues. So people who have this feeling different because they have a higher consciousness, or feeling isolated from the rest of the collective, because you are the bringer of light. And that's why it came strong through the Aries reading. Fucking amazing. So in desperation, her father seeks the advice of an oracle and is informed that she is to wed Death, meaning transformation. She is attired in funeral garb and led to a high mountain crag where she awaits her fate. Eros, having been commanded by his mother, is awaiting nearby, and seeing her off for the first time, is so struck with her beauty that he accidentally pricks his own hand with one of his arrows and falls deeply in love with Psyche. Instead of falling off the cliff, the winds carry her to an idyllic paradise, and she becomes the bride of Eros. There's many layers of depth and meaning. The beauty of Psyche speaks to the beauty of our soul, which if it's unexpressed and in an unawakened state, there is no metamorphosis, growth, or transformation. This equates to death in an archetypal sense, that transformation. If you go back and watch the Taurus, this is exactly the story that came through. But because I wasn't consciously aware of the story, it didn't. I didn't speak the story, but my consciousness, my higher consciousness, came through and put it into other words. But it is the same story. The call of the beloved, Eros, lures us into becoming more, reaching for more, unfolding and blossoming. The too much beauty of our soul is oftentimes shunned in our world when fully expressed, and we often want to retreat back into the quietness of slumber. It is a wake-up call to the soul individually, but in grander terms, a wake-up call to all souls of the collective consciousness as we sleepwalk through our global devastation and destruction caused by wars and other travesties. It is also a wake-up call to perceive all the beauties that surround us in our world daily that go unnoticed by the sleeping soul. This is not meant to be a sounding of an alarm, but a gentle reminder of awakening through the gift of love. Listen to the call of your beloved to gently awaken your soul and walk in awe of your own beauty. How does this myth of the divine lovers play out in modern emotional life? It's a metaphor of psychological growth. It identifies certain developmental tasks fundamental to mature identity and the ability to love fully, such as sorting out feelings, setting appropriate boundaries, owning projections, developing a dispassionate observer self. This is the ability to take a step back and have a higher perspective, but remaining compassionate. Because dispassion dispassionate observer is all about being detached yet compassionate. So the dispassionate observer self and empowerment with compassion. When relationships get stalled, this process is stuck in the immature stage. John Bradshaw called these mystified relationships, still enmeshed in the dynamics of the very early family life of the partners. The issues of safety and trust are unresolved. These are relationships which stick together for the sake of the children, and the children are the regressive personalities of the lovers. The healthy Eros Psyche relationship is one of empathy and intimacy, safety and passion. It's joyful and totally relaxed. When conflicts come up, they are means of negotiation. This is soulful love, which includes many results of self-consciousness. It is generative in nature. There is bonding, commitment, vulnerability, self-disclosure, sensuality, ecstasy, as well as respect, caring, belonging, togetherness, and toleration, and consistency. In love, the root experience is of the archetype of the self. The broad, deep emotional experience, coupled with detachment, vacillates from impulse to action. The self is the root of emotions when the ego is identified with it. The self remains ineffable or unknown and is too sacred to be expressed in words. That we experience the self as our inner childlike nature when we act out a pattern of cyclic instability in our love life. We don't relate adult to adult, but wounded child to wounded child. Neediness on both parts keeps the legitimate needs of both from being met. I have definitely recognized things in myself through this journey of wounds, childhood wounds, and the things that come up when we're triggered in relationships. It's such a mass collective kind of wounding. It's unbelievable. But I feel that the purpose of these twin soul stories are to change that, to change the dynamics. And it showed in the Taurus reading that change in dynamic is through the physical. What is too sacred to be expressed in words is expressed through the physical, which is why it came through in Taurus. And this initiates a healing transformation. And if it's saying that every analyst says that healthy, loving relationships are more healing than any therapy in the world, therapy is what? Talking. It's talking and expression, which is valuable. But it's saying that loving relationships heal. I feel that the twin soul, the soulmate thing is about the mirror to the self so that we can get to a point of having loving relationships. And then move into a very physically and spiritually healing vibration. That's just my opinion and what I feel on this. And it's really interesting that it showed me this myth. So back to the wounded child relationship. Neediness on both parts keeps the legitimate needs of both from being met. So the neediness keeps the needs from being met. It's a vicious cycle of your needs not being met. And these are periods of despair and exaltation, wounding, and healing. This is a variation of the archetype of the dying and resurrecting God. In its self-reflecting narcissism, this complex provides no stable sense of identity. We ask ourselves, who am I? And why can't I behave as I'd like to? Some people seek therapy for this very absence of a stable sense of identity after trying to form a false identity as a couple. So that explains why sometimes you'll meet people and they'll put on a complete mask, because they don't know who they are, and therefore they don't know why they can't behave the way they want to. So when you get involved with like full-on narcissistic individuals who can't find their own identity, and they're forming the false identity through the relationship with you. So getting back to this myth and this message, it says when the self begins operating in an individual, the ego automatically begins acting defensively to protect itself against the intolerable sense of fragmentation. So the feeling of being unique and whole alternates with self-defense against feeling wounded and worthless. The defense consists of cutting off the roots of all intense emotional experience with the beloved, and may even extend into other friendships. Okay, so here it says that each marriage or relationship consists of a union among 4 aspects: the normal consciousness of the partners and their subconscious or inner self. Thus, a woman loves not only a man as he behaves in outer life, but his inner feminine soul. A man embraces his wife and her inner masculine soul. This relationship was depicted in alchemy as the marriage of the alchemist and his mystic sister, who is his inner nature. Instead of depending on one another for a sense of self-value or codependence, self-esteem emerges from within through reflective introversion. We can mirror, validate, and support ourselves when we listen to our inner nurturing voice. When we explore our own personal depths, we come into our daily relationships as whole people. Then we can form truly interdependent, reciprocal relationships. Falling in love is a vehicle for the experience of the self. It's amazing. This is like mind-blowing to me. I'm really glad that I found this. And I could go on and on with this, but I'm going to leave it and continue on with the readings for this energy. So here is how I'm going to structure the way that I do readings moving forward. I've always resisted doing monthly forecasts. That's not my pathway. So I prefer to read when the sign is in, the particular sign that I'm reading for is in the celestial energy of the moon. So according to the moon calendar, this puts me back into a flow into my life energetically. It feels good to do it that way. Today until the end of Aries season, I'm going to take 10 readings, personal soul path readings, and 4 relationship readings. And then the next zodiac season, I'll do the same thing, but it'll possibly be more than 10. But for right now, I'm doing 10 personal soul path readings. But here is what I require if you want to have a reading, is that it has to be in the realm of the energy that we're in right now. So rebirth, creative empowerment, new dynamics in relationships, in a relationship that you're in, starting something new, or looking at your soul path in this particular energy of rebirth, setting boundaries, finding solutions, this energy of tinkering with things in a kind of a magical way, is what this energy is. So the readings will be that kind of message, and then the next zodiac season, obviously, it's going to be a different kind of energy and different kind of messages. So one thing about the relationship readings I want to say is that if you do want a relationship reading, both people have to be consciously aware that I'm going to perform the reading. So that means that you're going to have to be on the same page. You both, just like if you went to a counseling session, you both are willing participants. It's the same thing when you get a reading. I prefer that both people are setting an intention and willing to receive the message, it's much easier to read the energy. I don't necessarily feel there's anything bad about getting relationship readings if the other person is unaware. But I just know that that's not my path. My path is clear as day to me that I'm working with conscious energy, people who are resonating with what I'm saying and are at particular crossroads, and with the relationship energy, both people interested in the work that I do, not just one person looking for information about what the other person's doing. I'm all about self-empowerment and transformation process of the self. One person I like who is a psychologist is Jordan Peterson, and he said something about ego, and the death of that comes through being betrayed. So in betrayal, there is like a breaking down of the ego. And when that happens, I feel that depending on where someone's consciousness is, I feel like there's a chance for a transformation into a new vibration of being, and to become empowered so they can, like this ripple effect thing that came up in my reading a lot, is that this light has a ripple effect. So it's like saying, open up the doors, open up the windows, open up the curtains, and let that out with whatever projects you're doing, whatever light work you're doing, healing work, creative stuff, to show you who you are and how beautiful you are. Like in this myth, he sees, the person sees how beautiful they actually are once they have the courage to go against convention and the collective consensus who are cave dwellers. So I'm going to leave it there and get on with the readings. If you're waiting for a reading, I didn't forget you. I just have been going through some major shifts and coming up with this new structure. So if this fits with what you want right now, please send me an email and confirm that you still want a reading. Otherwise, you can either wait until the next cycle of energy, or I can just send you a refund. But I really have to follow my intuition and my new structure on this, because it's all about energy with me. And I'm going to send an email to those who are waiting anyway, even if they don't hear this. So, and sending lots of love to you. Bye.